Hello and welcome to another episode of Fully Charged. This episode is all about the BMW i3. Now, I have done a show about this before, and that's when I got to drive one when it was launched, but I only drove it for about an hour, and you never really can tell really what it's like when you do that. So it's great that I've got this for much longer now. I've got 54 miles of charge. It's not full, it's about half empty. And I'm going to drive it now and see what happens. And I've worked it out, so I've got my foot on the brake, it's on, and I push this lever here, and then that puts it in gear, and then it starts to move. And there we go, it's that easy. The handling is just exquisite. It's really, really nice car to drive. It goes where you steer, all those things. It's not wibbly wobbly. This is a really tight little car. It's fantastic. Very nice car to drive, very comfortable, brilliant visibility, mirrors and everything, all that stuff, excellent. It's nippy. What am I in now? 50 mile an hour limit. So I'm doing 36, and if I just go like that, it's very, very sort of solid push. Now, this is an electric car with an electric motor, with a big battery that you charge. But this particular model, there's two types of BMW i3. This particular model has what's called a range extender. So it's the BMW i3 Rex, and there's a little petrol engine in the back. What that does is extend the range of your batteries, so you can set it to hold the amount of charge you've got in your batteries. So for instance, at the moment I've got 54 miles in the battery, and if I then apply for to put the range extending thing on, which it took me a while to learn how to do that, not forever, because I'm going to say now the standard BMW interface is not my favorite thing. You know, I put the range extender on and I click hold state of charge. So there we go. It's a tiny engine. That's what's amazing. It's a little motorbike engine. And what that does is run off petrol, it runs a generator, and it maintains the level of charge that you've got in the batteries. It doesn't let the battery go down below that. And what this can mean is many things. One of the things it can mean is, say you're driving quite a long distance and you're going to a city where you can't use a petrol engine, which is going to be something that's being introduced into most European cities in the next few years. Then you drive with that running so that the battery maintains its level of charge, and then you've got 70 miles of electric range when you're in a city. Anyway, so that, as you can tell, I mean, I've driven this car very little, and it's just absolutely automatic. It works really, really well. It's a very nice car to drive. It keeps up with the traffic without any effort at all. You can easily break the speed limit in it if you want to do that. It's got cruise control. This is literally that. There we go. It's on cruise control. It's very easy to use. No one showed me that. I worked that out myself. It's got lots of different audio inputs. It's got Bluetooth. It's got USB inputs. You can play stuff on your phone. All that stuff. It's got all that stuff. The thing that I would be critical of, I think, is, and that's because I'm spoiled. So I'm used to the Tesla's navigation system and all that stuff. And this really does have what feels like quite an old school sat nav and input system, that you have to spell things out by moving a knob and a dial, and oh god. So this car can also be charged in the same way as any electric car. You could charge it from a 13 amp 3-pin plug. It would take a long time. You can charge it from a 7 kilowatt output like I've got at home, which is 32 amps. And you can charge it on a rapid charger on the motorway, which I will do in a bit just to have a go with it. And they're fairly common on motorways. Can motoring manufacturers agree on a standard charger for the whole world where we can all use the same one? No, of course they can't. Like mobile phone companies, they've all got to have their own special dibbly thing, and eventually they work it out, oh, actually it's better if we all use the same one. I reckon it takes 20 years. So I reckon in 20 years' time, all electric cars will use the same wire, but at the same time, most electric cars will be charged using induction charging rather than cables, because cables is a bit old school, really. Here's one of the things I think is important. Really, it's down to the two electric-only manufacturers, BYD and Tesla. They only make electric cars. And the three big manufacturers that also produce electric cars, I think BMW's in that top three. So that's Nissan, Renault, and BMW, because they make purpose-built, only electric. This car, there isn't a petrol version of this car, there isn't a diesel version of this car. This car was designed and built as an electric car, and that really makes a difference. It's not converted, it's not an adaptation You could argue that the e-Golf is the closest of any of the other cars where the manufacturer has gone from the ground up, redesigned the whole bodywork so that it can be a diesel, a petrol, a plug-in hybrid or a pure electric, which the e-Golf is one of those cars. So you can argue that, and I have tried to argue that, but still it's kind of, there's some compromises made, I think, in terms of battery size. And this car is it's just built in so well. The battery and the drive system and the battery management system is very sophisticated, very slick. They built a factory to make this car, this amazing factory in Germany, which is, I don't know how much powered, but enormously powered by renewables. So it's got a lot of solar, a lot of wind, and it's near a massive hydroelectric power plant, which is one of the reasons they did it. They built it there. So this car, I think, will have arguably, and I'm sure BMW would argue it, the lowest carbon footprint of any electric car produced, possibly of any car produced. Okay, I'm driving along the M4 outside Bristol. On my right is a massive solar farm. I've just seen another one on the left back there, and up on the hill is a wind turbine. I've got a sneaking suspicion that something is happening in the world. So driving this car today has really shown me one very important thing, and that is that it's very hard to judge a car from a 1 hour test drive, which is all I've ever done in this car. When it was launched, I got to drive it around Brands Hatch motor racing circuit at breakneck speed. I got to drive it for about an hour on the roads. And yeah, you could tell all the things that you need to tell. The brakes work, the indicators work, you can do steering with it, you know that. But I've driven it far enough now, and over a couple of days, to work out how it all plays together. And this one is the BMW i3 Rex with the range extended little petrol engine in the back that is almost impossible to hear when it's on. You just don't know when it's on or off unless you're going at 4 miles an hour, and then you can hear and it stops, and it's just a little like a motorbike engine that's turning a generator, that's generating enough power to keep the batteries at whatever level they're at when it turns on. And that, I think, is an interesting transition. It's like a transition drug, if you like, from people who are totally used to fossil fuel cars and then want to try an electric one, but they go, oh, what happens if it runs out on a lane at night? More people run out of petrol than anyone knows. There's been a big flurry of activity around that because there's all these signs on motorways that go, check your fuel level, because so many people are running out of fuel on motorways all the time. Oh, do they have range anxiety? They do when they stall in the fast lane. There's a brilliant picture of that the other day. Someone just stopped in the fast lane, caused pandemonium on the motorway because they'd run out of gas. How ridiculously stupid is that? So this car allows you to gently transition, to understand how electric cars work. And I've heard from so many people on Twitter who've got these cars today that say they never use the Rex. There's someone someone who's left me a message who's done 25,000 miles in their BMW i3, and they've used 9 litres of petrol in that time. So they very rarely use it, but it's there if you want it. And I've been driving today just to see what happens. About the last 30 miles I've been driving with the little engine running, and the battery level has maintained at 45 miles range all that time. It doesn't go down. If you go fast on the motorway, it drops a little bit because the little motor can't keep up with the amount of electricity you're using. But at normal driving speeds and at normal B roads, A roads, it's absolutely fine. So you could drive, literally I could drive from here. I'm in Wiltshire at the moment. I could drive to Scotland in this car without ever plugging it in, just keep putting petrol in it. It uses quite a lot of petrol. It took me a long time to work out how much petrol. So when I was driving this morning, the petrol was very nearly empty, so I stopped at a garage and I actually stopped and I bought petrol with a petrol pump and put it in. £8.61 filled it. That was an expensive petrol because I'd forgotten how expensive petrol is on a motorway services and how much cheaper it is elsewhere. So let's say £8. Let's say £8, that's easy. And that gives you about 80 miles range in the car for £8. So then you work out that is, I did some calculations. So it should be really easy. 80 miles for £8. That's like £10. I initially worked out it cost £10 a mile. I went, God, this uses loads of petrol. No, that would be if it cost £8. And you couldn't even do a mile. Okay, I worked it out wrong. What I need is some help from a young person to explain how many miles to the gallon it does.
He bought 7.24 litres of petrol for £8.61p. 7.24 litres is 1.59 gallons. So a gallon costs £5.41. If you can drive 80 miles on 1.59 gallons, you are getting 50.3 miles to the gallon. It's not that hard, Robert. I can do it and I'm 7.
But anyway, so you'd be an idiot if you drove this car just using petrol. That's not what it's for. It uses electricity very efficiently. It's brilliantly engineered. There's no question of that. I love the engineering that BMW have done on this. The electric motor, the way it drives is just really satisfying. It's a really nice car to drive, brilliant visibility, quite bizarre doors. We learnt something today that if you're in the driver's seat there and you've got someone who wants to get in the back on the far side, they can close this door, but they can't close that one, which means that the driver has to get out and go and close it. But very rarely, when would you ever have someone in the back unless there was someone in the front? So, you know, it's being a bit picky, but they are quite bizarre. Some people love them, some people hate them. It's quite nice when it's like this. You could cool it down on a hot day very quickly. And other than that, it's just, you know, it does all the things that cars do, and it's brilliant. So, I mean, it's definitely in my list of top 5 all-time best electric cars. Anyway, that's all. That's all for this week's Fully Charged. Thank you for watching. You know the normal stuff. I'll just say it quickly. Subscribe, Patreon. That's it. Thanks a lot. What you're watching here isn't some activist film about the impact of cars on the road and the impact of population and how the fact that the world is really in trouble. No, that's not what this is. It's really intriguing. When I first saw the BMW i3 being launched, they showed this film. This film is an advert by a car company about how ridiculous it is, how many cars there are on the road, and how we've all got to change the way we use cars. And it's coming from a car company. I just thought it was intriguing, so I just wanted to show it. Just a bit of it at the end of this week's show. Anyway, that's all. Have a good look at it.